Well, welcome back to Garage Night. We're continuing on with the fitting of the White Power forks to the BMW.
It's the WP fork.
The WP suspension to give, yeah.
To apologise, WP forks. We were discussing the length of this project earlier on, but I think that, how many months did it end up being that we've been working on here? Or are we not supposed to be saying
I think we're up to 2 years now.
2 years, is it?
2 years of pissing around,
2 years
two children being born.
That's it.
I think that's the way to measure
But
it.
yeah, if you measure it in children born, it's 2,
Yeah.
which is quite a lot. Two issues you've got when you're putting a different set of forks onto a bike are the steering lock for the key and the steering stops for the forks, so they don't go around too much. So for the steering lock for the key, we've made these 3 pieces of steel, which by themselves look rather innocuous and obviously well made and engineered. Together they bolt on here. This one is threaded and goes on the inside.
So that's the
Like
original.
so.
That's the original sort of striker plate, or whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it, that the steering lock
Indeed, striker plate
engages with.
Striker plate is a nice term. And then to space it out, we've made 2 extra pieces of steel here, which then will be bolted and epoxied as well. And then we will bolt them like so. The steering, we'll show you again once it's all fitted, but essentially you'll be able to use the steering lock as it was before with the hole here, and also an additional one here.
So what have you got down the side? Just a notch in the side.
Just a little notch.
So that's the steering head seen from the top. That's the original plate. That
The
the
striker
locking-
plate, I think.
Striker plate is the term that I made up. It's got 2 holes in it there. That's one there, one there. That's where the lock originally could be locked into, isn't it?
Indeed.
Do you want to put the one in behind, Peter? Have you got the one that
The
goes?
one's behind us there.
Oh, it is.
It's down a little bit lower
tucked
than
down
it will
in
be.
there.
It will be a little bit higher than that.
It's got a
once it's done.
hole there and a hole there that corresponds
to the inside of
these two plates
that there's no chance of it moving like this at all.
and we're going to glue it on as well. So that's 4mm plate.
The trick to it was to get them to match, because
Right.
obviously if you did them both the same, it wouldn't match so well. So it just took a little bit of
So they both need a
tweaking.
slightly different base curve.
yeah, indeed, and the one on the inside is a different curve again.
And show us the screws that you've used. Countersunk stainless.
We also actually turned a bit off the edge just so that they sit right down.
The second part of this exercise is to make the steering stop. Pete and Trent made up this bespoke piece. Easier to perhaps show when we fit it, but it'll fit through the bolts down here to go round this, what is the current part of the steering stop for the BMW.
Keep the bars well clear of the tank and everything.
That's right, and we just, over time, to judge how much to grind off, we built it out, it was a square to begin with, so to speak, and we just gently ground off bit by bit, test and retest, until we were satisfied that we had it the right dimensions for what we were doing. So we had a base plate, then, if I'm right, we had like 1 or 2 pieces here which then braced together,
yeah.
and this was a separate piece again.
Yeah. So effectively it'll be going like this.
Yeah.
We're also going to put some grub screws in here, just to strengthen that up as well. Yeah.
Right, just so so that's not hollow basically.
Yeah.
This is the KTM Yoke which we're using. This is the 950 lower clamp for obviously for the fork. So we started with that. We turned down the Supermoto stem. We turned it down to take the BMW bearing, so it was the right. It only required a very small amount to be trimmed off it to create the interference fit at the bottom, etc., to take the BMW bearings. So what we ended up doing was taking that stem, because the KTM 950 stem is significantly longer, as out to here. We took the stem we'd already worked on, we switched them over, and with a little bit of machinery, just to trim a little bit, in this case off the clamp here, we're able to get the length we want.
And it has to be machined at the appropriate points, which you'll have to measure yourself on your own bike.
We haven't really done much, but as you can see, I can see from here, managed on the camera, there's a slight discoloration here, which indicates that this piece here up to here is slightly wider. It thins up from about this point here, so a couple of inches in, perhaps down to here. And at about this point here, it starts. You can see it's still very slightly. So I can see it starts to slightly widen out, and it's the interference fit down here for the BMW bearing.
So the bottom bearing will seat there, and then you put your top one on, and it will have an interference fit here. Really, something you need to get the clamp and get your clamps, put them on your own bike, take the measurements yourself as to exactly where things will sit. One thing that we probably should mention is that hole can't be a round hole. It needs to be sort of elliptical to just allow a bit of movement when you're locking the bike, because if it's exactly the same size as the locking pin, you're going to have it perfectly aligned to get it to lock, which of course will never happen. And also it needs to be sort of, well, as I said, elliptical, because as your steering head bearings wear and you tighten it, the orientation of the lock pin will actually change in relation to the hole. So you've got to you know, have a big enough hole to allow for adjustment. There's the steering stop adapter fitted around the original steering stop.
On the instrument mounting bracket, there's this nut here that's actually spot welded onto the bracket. You'll see on the bottom here that we've actually taken that nut off, and we've just got a nut and a bolt going through there.
We like a well lubricated shaft on Garage Night, and here it is. I don't know why you guys have put grease all the way up the steering stem. Is that necessary, Trent?
Not particularly, it just stops it going rusty and horrible like elephant ones do when you fill up with water.
Talking Kajiva elephant there. That's my Kajiva elephant over there, by the way. Headstock has a nasty habit of filling up with water. The top bearing seal doesn't keep water out, but the bottom bearing seal keeps water in somehow.
Perfect.
These are BMW bearings with the dust shield.
The original BMW dust shield.
Oh, I just fucking wiped all that grease off the handlebars. Jesus Christ.
Well, I can't fucking see it.
Even though that's where the bearing, not where the bearing ultimately sits, you can't machine that top bit down because the triple clamp has got to clamp onto it, and it's got to be the right size for the top triple clamp.
Now what? Ah, there we go.
Yoke. Look at that, perfect. Hey?
Well, yeah, it has taken 2 years.
BMW owners delight in this innovation.
This is the BMW upper dust shield. This Trent's trimmed up slightly. Taking a bit of a chunk out here.
Yeah.
Just to fit this bike.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I see.
What we're just concerned about is that when it's all mated up, that is sitting level. The shaft is sitting level with the top yoke. There actually needs to be a small, it needs to sit more like, you know, I'm exaggerating, more like that, so that as the steering head bearings wear and you tighten the bolt, it pulls the bottom yoke up.
We could try it and see, and I mean, if we have to put a space underneath there, then
We may have to put a space. You reckon?
I'm sure we could get one of the old dust caps that we've got, grind the lip off it, and put it on there, or a big washer.
So where would you put the spacer, Pete? Underneath the triple clamp.
Yeah.
So we gave the length of that shaft as
216.
216. You might want something more like 214. And we'll just deal with that by way of a spacer if we decide that we need some space in there to allow for adjustment of the bearings. Or you could get it machined off. So there we go, we've got a bit more clearance now because Trent's just made up a spacer to go under the triple clamp between the dust cover and the top yoke. So that's given us about 1 millimetre of adjustment there, which we think is all we need. The yokes are on, 2 years later, 2 years in the making.
And a space in the last 10 seconds, yeah.
So there's the ignition all mounted up. Does it engage? Does it lock?
Does it?
Locked. The other way? Cool. We've got one fork leg on now, and Pete's just putting the brake caliper on that we're going to use.
The KTM 950 caliper.
Right, KTM 950 Adventure caliper.
When we got it, we got both calipers because the KTM 950 runs the twin disc. But we've only got a single. At the time we bought the hub for the front wheel, the KTM hub, we've just got a single-sided hub. So it wasn't an option to run twin disc without replacing the hub. So
we're just using one disc, which is probably all you'll need.
Well, we think so. Based on the weight of the bike, what we're doing, we're lightening the load. If anything, we don't think we need to take up to twin disc. We'll find out.
Just on the standard BMW master cylinder at the moment, because the old caliper was the same twin piston style of caliper. So hopefully, we'll see how it goes. Right, wheel with flashy wavy disc.
When you buy your front hub from KTM, it comes with 2 spacers. And you got to machine them down to suit this wheel. This hub anyway, because this hub is a single disc hub. I don't know if it differs from the double one in terms of width or anything, but it's a single one. It's probably a generic KTM front hub with that massive front axle. So obviously you've got to machine the spacers so that the wheel ultimately sits in the middle, and then have the dishing right on the spoken. So it's a whole combination of different things to get the front wheel in the middle of the forks, but you also have to get the disc in the middle of the caliper as well.
Before, the spacers were actually slid inside the bearings, so the hub was designed for an axle that was much smaller than the 950. So what we did is took the spacers out. The bearings are the same size as the 950 bearings,
Right.
so we just machined the ends off the spacers, and machined the insides of the spacers out,
Right.
so that the axle would slide through them,
Right.
and then we just adjusted them so that the disc sat in the middle of the caliper.
Right.
And
So if someone does this, they're going to have to do some juggling with spacers, but
possibly, depending on which hub they buy.
yeah.
Obviously, if they use a 950 hub, then they wouldn't have to do anything.
One thing we should mention is that we also took some material off the instrument panel here so that the forks would clear.
So just in here, we just trimmed off, I don't know, maybe about 5-10 mil, just a small section here, just to make sure these forks, being that much fatter than the BMW ones, would just clear through here without interference.
Not the instrument panel, but the sort of the mounting
This
bracket
mounting
and
stock.
cowl setup that mounts the headlight and the instrumentation.